Thank you, Arun. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of TGS 2020 and TI Hyderabad team, I would like to welcome and thank you all to be here. My name is Rashmi Ghosh, Executive Director at TI Pune, and got the privilege to host today's panel with the renowned and established entrepreneurs. Let me quickly brief you all on today's panel and speakers. Panel discussion is going to be on strategizing for a successful exit. We have Naga Prasad, who is the director at People Combined Group, and Arun Jain, the founder at Polaris and CMD at Intellect Design, as a panel speakers, and Basil Mofta as a panel moderator. Basil is an experienced company builder and general partner at Global Ventures, an international venture capital firm. He has been an advisor, investor, and board member with the numerous global technology companies. A champion of diversity and inclusion, he grew the business seamlessly and made numerous strategic acquisitions. Basil holds a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering from the American University and MBA from Harvard Business School. Handing over to Basil now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi, and welcome everybody to today's session about strategies for successful exit. I'm honored to have with me a great panel, Mr. Arun Jain, the chairman and managing director of Intellect Design. He is also the founder of, or was the founder of Polaris Group, chairman and managing director of the Intellect Design Arena Limited, the world's first full spectrum fintech products company. Intellect powers over 250 leading global banks and financial institutions. And Arun commenced his entrepreneurial journey by setting up the Nucleus Software in 1986, Polaris Software in 1992, and Intellect in 2011. He's an evangelist of design thinking, and his brainchild FinTech 2012, the world's first design center at Chennai dedicated to financial technology, came into being. Arun has also been nominated as the chairperson of the Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Information Technology in Ranchi, Jharkhand, India, by the Honorable President of India for a period of 3 years with effect from the 2nd of September 2020. He's also been bestowed with many awards, and he has several Lifetime Achievement Awards. Mr. Arun Jain, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to introduce our second panelist today, Mr. Naga Prasad, who is the heads up or the co-founder of People Combined Group. The group has been in the education and hospitality for about 3 decades. The group is the founder of the Oak Ridge International Schools, OI Play Schools, and Westbury Schools, and Hospitality Brand 7. In 2019, they exited from Oak Ridge and OI. The Oak Ridge exit is the single largest FDI in education in India with a clean 100% exit. And after this successful exit, Mr. Prasad is currently working on a new idea, again in the education space. He has pledged to contribute a third of his savings, I guess, and so on. You can tell us more about that, Ms. Naga, to philanthropy. And through People Combined Foundation, the work that they have done during the COVID to help migrate workers through Stop the Walk campaign and contribution to help healthcare workers has received many accolades. He's again also very well recognized, very well known, a member of the community, and it's a real pleasure to have you with us here, Mr. Naga, today. How are you? Do you want to say that again? I'm not sure I heard the audio. Can you speak up?
Thank you very much.
Very good. Audio check done. Perfect. We're all good. We're ready to go. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you here. And I mean, how do you prepare for a successful exit? I mean, how do you know when the time is right? And maybe I can start with you, Mr. Jain, just to tell us, how did you know that moment when you wanted to exit the business?
I'll just take a slightly introduction to the whole term exit. And this is a very good topic I has picked up because that's a entrepreneur core value called exit. He works on building new things and exiting new things. So first of all, when he starts his journey from building a product, a concept, and then build a product, and then he starts sell the concept to some customers, few customers, and then he take it forward to build the operational capability, and then he build up a leadership capacity, then he build up a finance capacity, then he build up a brand and sales. So there are 6 things he does in his life. He builds 6 capitals, and each time when he's building one capital, he's exiting from the previous capital. So what is the time is right? I call to entrepreneur as a social architect of the society. He look at the human need, he understands the desirability of the human need, and he service that human need by providing some services to do it. It's like a design thinking language. He knows the desirability, he builds feasibility, he builds viability, and creates an intersection of it, which is called the experience, and that's where the entrepreneur comes in. And he has a purpose to be driven. He's a purpose-driven person. Now, in this scenario, when the successful exit is there, it can be at 2 points of time in the journey. One, when he believes that somebody else can contribute better in that journey than he himself can do, or his purpose, which he has set up the institution, is reached to his point where he wants to have a freedom of the choice to say, I want to contribute in some other area, and I have contributed in this area. I want to go to philanthropy. I want to go to learning some new businesses. So there are two trigger points for looking at a successful exit. It's a long answer.
No, I love the answer. I think it's fantastic that it's built on this multiple levels and dimension. But Mr. Naga, I think, entrepreneurs are ambitious people, right? They always, when they get to one level, they want to go to the next level. How did you know it was the time to exit, or how did you reach that conclusion?
Exit is not a overnight decision, or it was built to exit. However, during the journey, after reaching a stage, then we were looking at the options possible, 2-3 options, whether we continue to run, or second is bring the second generation into the business, or exit. These are the 3 options we were evaluating. And when we were building school like Oak Ridge, we were very clear that we are building an institution that is going to last beyond our lifetime. So institutions should be run by professional organizations. Over time, they become like a promoter redundant and keep contributing to the society. So that's when we thought we should not bring the second generation, rather pass it on to a professional organization that is globally focused and take this brand that we have built to the next level. That's when we have decided to exit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just coming back to you, Mr. Arun, in terms of the Polaris journey, I know many people know the company, but hearing it from you about, can you tell us about that journey and more importantly, the decisions to merge and then the decision to exit and so on? I'd love to understand how the different points in your journey around Polaris.
Thank you, Basil, to give that perspective of Polaris. A lot of people know Polaris, but I think we started in '93 and we grew extremely fast during that period.
Some people on this webinar were not born yet in '93, by the
way. So in '99 we went IPO. I think it was a brilliant IPO. We could create $1 billion company in 1999, the post IPO, and then it was a top 10 companies out of India IT outsourcing services space. So we enjoyed the highlights and the change and transformation which India was experiencing during this period of IT revolution, and that's really helped first level. And then that is the time when we acquired first multinational company, Kozal Citicorp Overseas Limited, in name of Orbitech, in 2002. It was the largest Indian company acquiring global multinational company outfit. We paid close to $200 million for that acquisition during that period of time in 2002. These numbers are 2002 numbers, not current numbers. So, and with this we taken the IP assets of Citibank. We taken a lot of intellectual assets was built into $200 million acquisition, and then the next 10 years went into just aligning, building a new value proposition for the market, going to the large markets. In 2012, we built up a $100 million product business and $300 million service business. And that is the time when we look at it next 10-year journey, and when we're sitting in a strategic room with a board and looking at next 10 years, 2022, we are looking at it service business. What is the potential of service business growth and what is the product business growth? We find that these two businesses run with the two different CEOs. We took a large decision of demerger. So this is a first of its kind, again, demerger of the two companies, one product company and one services company. Polaris remains service company 2014, and Intellect became a product company. And after it separated, all the things, after 12 months of its separation, we started the journey of exiting Polaris, because my heart was more in product and licenses, and I cannot keep my shoes in both the boats, and one boat need to get let go. Otherwise, the larger business always consumes my mental time. An entrepreneur, the major cost and major investment is his intellectual time and physical, not the physical time, but the intellectual time is most important for him. So letting go was a big decision making point. Making a 200 crore company which is giving a profit, and Intellect which is eating a revenue investment of 200 crore, it was completely a two area. I first time experienced after 20 years that I have to bear the losses and I have to go to bank for taking loans or fundraising. Till that time I was in a comfort zone. So for entrepreneur life, being a vulnerable, I would say when you are vulnerable, your mind thinks 10 times faster. And that's how I push myself to the out of comfort zone to set up Intellect Design into.
And you and I spoke about this earlier, and I'm interested for you to share it with the audience about how do you let go? How do you mentally prepare yourself to let go? And then if you don't mind also saying, how do you share that news with your management team, the people that, grew the company, when you say, you know what, I'm out? Do they feel betrayed, or do they feel, how do they feel?
Beautiful point, Basil. The two questions you are asking. How do I prepare myself as an entrepreneur? It was a bigger decision to look at it. How do I let go? In Jain, the scriptures where I come from, aparigraha, non-attachment is a bigger piece in our life. That how do I remain non-attached? Letting go the brand which you build over the period of time, it becomes your identity. So it was a good experiment which with my spouse I shared, and few friends which we spent some time on looking at the holistic perspective. What my life purpose is life purpose is Polaris, or life purpose is social contribution, or life purpose is something different. Once I align to the larger life purpose, then Polaris purpose becomes smaller. So the simple principle, when your two lines make other line bigger, so if other line become bigger, then letting go Polaris become easier. On answering second question, because it was 13,000 employee company, and Polaris was close to 9,000 people who had worked in the company, has put a sweat in the company, and to tell them that we are taking this decision, that was a more difficult question for me personally, and that was more hurting sometime to me personally or emotionally. And then I shared with first 10 people, then next 50 people, and then next 100 people, and then look at the rationale of what we are doing and what is the career they are doing. So what company we will be choosing for Polaris to go is not a financial decision. It's a decision where they will get benefited of a larger size. We were around 350 million. If other company, Virtusa, we took a similar size company, around $500 million company, combined company become $1 billion company. So every employee get a better platform to work on, operate on. That was my consideration set, so that we believe that we have contributed in building $1 billion organization for Virtusa, and then Virtusa become $1 billion organization, so that their dream also gets merged with our dream. And that was a point I could able to meet two emotional elements of the selling off.
No, I completely understand, and I mean I think the emotional side of an entrepreneur's journey is as difficult as the business side, right? And letting go and communicating and having people accept that decision is a very difficult. But getting down to business, Mr. Naga, if I can come to you, I'd love to hear. Were you planning? Can you let me share a bit more detail? Were you planning the exit for a long time, or was it a surprise? How did you find the investors? Kind of give the entrepreneurs and business leaders on this call some of the tips and tricks of how you get the largest exit in an education business, which not a simple thing to do, I presume.
So when Arun was explaining, I was just correlating what we went through. Personally, I went through. Most of the experiences are similar experiences. Maybe the size is different. And another coincidence is People Combine was also founded in 1993. There are quite a few similarities. it as I mentioned, we have not built the institution for a high value exit. However, as we were bringing it to reach a stage and looking at the future, next 5 to 20 years time, what it is going to look like. So, however, we were very focused on the governance from very early on, because we always believed that in education, mostly that governance issue is a big question mark. But we kept it very clear to ourselves. It is not always the profit that is going to get you value. Rather, what kind of governance standards you maintain, that's what it is going to get you the value. So that is one thing. As a result, we are uh, acquisition ready. Second thing, also we there were a couple of rounds of private equity investment, and we have given exit to both. So there is a clear established track record of dealing with funds, professional board, and proper organization structure, and also promoters redundancy. Organization can run on its own. These are some of the characteristics that we have built over time, not necessarily preparing for an exit, but this is what we believed. Incidentally, the buyer saw this is a very rare phenomena in India, that any K-12 organization is this level of professionally run. So they looked at, evaluated, and we were also mentally prepared for something like this to happen at any time. So both have matched right.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing those strategies. And I agree. Quality in a company, such as governance, transparency, operations, processes, really do matter at the exit. I mean, I think we've all done acquisitions here as well. So, you learn from when you do the acquisitions, the problems you face, that when you become a seller, hopefully that you become more cognizant of those things. Can you tell us what was the biggest challenge in your mind during that process? I know this happened last year, I believe. So what got in the way, or what do you wish you knew today that when you were going through the exit, you would have been even more prepared than you were?
Yeah, as Arun explained, it was the biggest challenge is emotional separation. When we were building the institution, uh, it was not a business unit. It was so involved activity, and about 1,600 employees, particularly teachers who are mostly emotional by nature. And we are ranked 15 in a great place to work. So you can understand what level of connectedness we had with employees. And on one fine day, we are just walking out. Was just very difficult to comprehend. Everybody was, including myself, was into tears. But we compared it with like your daughter getting married to, and so when a daughter leaves, so every parent has tears. So the similar emotion we went through.
No,
So
I can imagine separation, and I don't know if there's anything that can prepare people. Selling a business is a journey, and when you get to that point, but Mr. Arun, you've been also an acquirer, so you've bought businesses as much as you've sold and exited business. What do you look for? What are the key things that stand out for you when making an acquisition that either make you do it or not, for that matter?
There are few criteria. I look at to evaluate the business around six parameters. I would say, how is the product, first of all, the depth of the product, the strength of the product. In technology business, the product and technologies are the core piece, which is there, which is a first piece where I would give almost 33%, one third of the weightage. The second piece would be how do you do the execution, how is it operational, how the execution is there, operational processes systems are there. Then third is the financial governance, how is the financial governance running. Fourth is the leadership. Fifth is the customer base, and sixth is the brand and sales engine, which is there for the business. I call it belief. There are six capital. B stand for brand, E stand for end customer, L for leadership, I for intellectual property, what business is bringing in the form of the product or the processes. E stand for execution capital, and F for finance capital. So there are six capital in the business. Normally, all the strips which is given by the investment banker is more focused on financial metrics and other metrics. But I believe there are six metrics which is required to be there, which is a belief of the entrepreneur who is building the business and equivalent to belief of the six capital, BELIEF.
That's fantastic. And I hope everybody wrote that down, because those are the things, I agree with you. Those are the things that matter, the customer base, the product, but, the leadership and all of the things you mentioned are interesting. When Mr. Naga, just to come back to you, I mean, you made a really big decision after the exit in terms of how you wanted to lead your life and what you wanted to do next. I'd love for you to tell us how you came to that and share a little bit more about it.
So after exit, I am doing two things. One is philanthropy, and second one is the new edtech startup. The philanthropy part was decided even before exit. We always believed in giving back to the society, and that's when I just told my children and said I contribute 1/3 of my net worth for philanthropy. And I also believe in educating below poverty children in large numbers by using technology, so that education is going to change individual and then family and the society at large. So I'm integrating my passion, my expertise, and my social consciousness into one, so that the synergy is good, and every day I'm not pushing myself to be on multiple boats. Rather, everything has a common thread to it.
I first of all commend you on that, and I think that's something everybody should look up to, and congratulations on your group and everybody doing that. But I also heard you said you have another edtech. Is it you couldn't help yourself, or is it just the feeling that I still am an entrepreneur and will always be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm always an entrepreneur. I never worked for anyone in my life, including with this exit. I exited on the same day of transaction. So technically, not even on a single day I was on somebody else's payroll. And the aim of exit was not to sit in Goa or somewhere in a holiday spot, rather to pump up the energy to the next level and do much more wonderful things in life that I can do. So the entrepreneurial journey is continuing, and I think that's there. And in a way, nothing else is there.
Well, I wish you all the success with that one too, and I'm sure it will be a great journey as well. To come back to you, Mr. Arun, you also took the philanthropic journey, but also became a leader in design thinking. How are you spending your time now, and what's kind of the thinking process post-exit, if you want?
Two things. First is to set up an Indian product company on a global map was a big challenge. It required close to 1,700 crore of investment in building a brand and sales a new brand at Intellect level. So the Intellect is a one full-time job, but it was more of a coaching, enabling, mentoring job for a global product company. But second job as a design thinker, where the design thinking can be applied. I personally believe the Silicon Valley difference to other part of the world is design thinking. When Stanford started design thinking sometime early 1992, I picked up that model of design thinking and become a teacher in design thinking. So what I enjoy being a teacher of design thinking in and applying it in various contexts. So I said, what is the most difficult problem in the country is the rural development. So I'm trying to, in last 4 years, we looking Mission Samriddhi, how do you bring a prosperity, and looking at a design thinking application where you understand the customer first and who is the customer in development. Is rural India, where 900 million people live, is the biggest customer base for us to look at it, and how do we transform them using design thinking. Now there's a one way of doing some school, some social work here and there. We said there are already very good work happening. Around 100 organizations we picked up, which are best in class, which are working in it, and created a social network around it, picking up the best practices. The theme of Mission Samriddhi is celebrate what is good happening in the country, whether good is done by government, good is done by the corporate, and good is done by the NGO. We don't call NGO, we call development accelerator, anybody who helps the development accelerator. Then we applying a design thinking to say how is the panchayat, which is the lowest unit in the country, where the administration is there from state to district to block to panchayat, there are 4 levels. I need to provide a leadership there. Sarpanch is like a CEO of the company. The health of the company depends on the way CEO thinks. Similarly, health of the village is dependent on how the Sarpanch thinks and how Sarpanch act. How do we create a leadership capacity building with him, along with the National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj in India? So how do we participate in a collaborative manner where sensitivity of NGO, the decision making, the planning process of corporate, and reach of government, the 3 things comes together, it can create a magic of it. Because government cannot apply their funds for something which is to be tested. Can we create social businesses for them? So our role is to remain behind, but enable multiple NGOs to scale up to 10x applying design thinking. And those design thinking sessions I take for panchayat leader, I personally go and work with the UP or Maharashtra or Jharkhand, those states. And it's quite enjoying journey for understanding that how intelligent they are. It's only they need to align their capacities to build up a businesses the way we build businesses. So there's no difference between us for looking at them differently and look down upon, but look up to them, that with that harshness and entrepreneurship spirit they are demonstrating, we need to learn from them and enable them to remove those friction point in their thinking process. So it's a interesting journey. Thank you for asking this question, Basil.
Oh, and I think it's a fascinating part of where the world is going. I think design and customer centricity is the only way to be successful in technology today. But that sounds like a topic for another discussion, maybe another time. As we're coming up to kind of the end of the session, I have one last question, and hoping to see from the audience any questions that they may have as well. But and you know, I this will be a tough one, so take your time to think about it, or maybe you already know the answer. But if there's one piece of advice you would give entrepreneurs today, and one piece of advice that you'd say, you know, to them, this is the thing, you know, I wish I knew, or I had done better, or regret, or whatever the case might be, what would that be, that piece of advice? And you know, I can start with you, Mr. Naga, and love to hear. You know, what is it that you tell people today about building a business, exiting it, and that journey that amazing journey you've been on?
To be frank, I don't have any regret of any sort. So every day it was solving a problem and handling a challenge, and I was always excited about it. There were times when we were feeling very anxious, but that was part of journey. If I go back and do the same thing, probably I may not do any different. However, if I do it now, probably I use more technology, and I even end up emphasizing on governance far better than what our focus earlier was. So, as an entrepreneur, 2-3 things one has to always keep in mind. If you are not very excited about going to work on a daily basis. That is the time when you absolutely have to exit from it. Also, second thing, if you are not focusing on innovation and value creation and more so becoming operational, that is high time for you to exit. So the third thing is, as I mentioned earlier, of course, any business, unless it is profitable, it is very difficult to sell. However, profitability alone is not going to get you buyers. The governance is much more important. If these three things one keeps in mind, it would be always a very interesting journey.
Wise words, and definitely and definitely ones that I think, when I think about my journey and the things I did, I wish I knew at the time. So lots of wise words there. Mr. Arun, over to you. Same
Yeah,
questions.
sure.
One advice, right? And I know
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Naga took three, so
yeah.
I'll give you some space there. But the biggest thing that you wish you knew, or what you would tell entrepreneurs today, matters more than most as they think about how they build their businesses and hopefully have the same success that both of you have had.
I think one advice to entrepreneurs, if it's one advice, I would say, do you know why you are doing business? What is the purpose of your business? Why part of it, Simon Sinek, of why is the critical piece of doing the business and passion. And ready to be being vulnerable when you are not knowing why. The three key magic word: acknowledging I don't know. Just acknowledgement I don't know is the biggest energizer for getting help from anybody in the world. An entrepreneur should do. A lot of time entrepreneur gets into ego, and that's where the I don't know is the three key magic words.
Well, I think those are wise words. Ego is a big player, and I think saying I don't know, I think is a powerful set of words that let people help you. I think that the expression people used to say is, when you're raising money, if you go raise money, you get advice, and if you go ask for advice, you get money. So that's the expression that I've heard a couple
Lovely.
of
Yeah.
times, or a thing that I think has been mentioned to entrepreneurs many times. The organizer have asked me to kind of keep you guys for a few more minutes, so I am gonna ask one more question, and make sure that we take up the whole time because of how interesting and exciting this is. But I think if I look back at kind of strategies, exit, we discussed some of the strategies, the journey, the emotional journey, and so on. I'd love for you to talk about kind of your vision of what's happening in India today, and what you'd like to see more of, and maybe less of, for that matter, in your respective industries or in the respective areas that you've been focused on. Mr. Arun, I'll come to you first on that.
I will cover in three dimensions what is happening in India. First of all, in last 20 years, what has happened in India is what happened in any country like America or Russia in 1950s to 1970s. So we are just a few decades behind, but I think that there is a prosperity which is there. The urban societies are that lot of capital which is getting created. The beauty is happening is that we have at least good capital getting created in the good hearts, which is a first generation entrepreneur. Earlier, all the capital was with the family bound businesses. The problem of the family bound businesses is that I am a trustee of that wealth. I am not a owner of decision of that wealth. So my role is to protect that wealth for the next generation. While a first generation wealth, I am a decision maker of it. So a lot of money is coming to philanthropy. Yesterday, we had a session of IPI, which Ajim Premji has taken. More than 100 people were there in that session. So there's good amount of philanthropy capital which is emerging, not in terms of just the money part of it, but the thinking part of it, intellectual part of it, whether the Infosys, Nandan would be there, Rohini would be there, or Premji would be there, or other people, Anu Aga would be there. So many industrialists will be there, which is contributing to the development. The third thing is education, which is getting coming at the last mile problem. The digital age of India is phenomenal. Today, the corruption level get direct credit to the account, which Nandan has set up infrastructure of Aadhaar card. The entire digital framework, which has happened for 1.3 billion people, where amount can be credited. ISRO can give images of the agriculture farms, which is there. The technology usage, which is happening in the country like India, is amazing. And the adoption rate, because we don't measure the adoption rate, we always look at what is not there, and we always see half glass empty. We don't see what is get filled in last 20 years. It's phenomenally large infrastructure. When I first visited US in 1986, that time I saw the infrastructure of communication, infrastructure of road, infrastructure of power. I think we have all of it available here. Now it's a time for entrepreneur to just leverage that infrastructure and build the next India, new India in next 10 years. It will be very, very different India. I am very optimistic about it.
And I'm excited as well to see how India has become a leader in technology and will continue to lead in that space. Mr. Naga, over to you. What's the future look like to you? Education, Mr. Arun mentioned about that, but I'm sure you have a bigger vision and picture of this industry.
Yeah, all through I'm in education, so my understanding and perspective is all around education. Right to Education Act has brought almost 100% of the students into education fold, school enrollment. However, this education presently, the formal education, what we consider is legitimate, is designed for elimination process. If you look at of the students who are enrolling into schools, 74% of the students are dropping off anywhere during their journey in the school. It's not that they are so happy and successful, hence they are leaving. They are failed. Only 26% are actually going to colleges. If you ask Arun, from those who are going to college, how many are worthy to recruit? Again, he has a lot of pain point around it. So if you look at entire 25 crore students are there, not even 10% from that are actually participating in the globalized economy. 90% of them are actually confined to the regional, local, very micro economies. However, the present education, these slogans like one country, one education, one medium, these things, they appeal to masses, very interesting. But India is so different after every 100 kilometers. The culture is different, language is different, food is different, geography is different. And unless these people are given the kind of skills, they exploit the resources in a sustainable way and have a good living, this education is not going to make any sense to most population. And of course, the recent national education policy has given some thought around it, but the kind of complexity involved to make it happen, it's not very easy to see the NAP is translated into a proper execution. And in the process, what's happening, we are running out of time. More and more creating useless class of people, unfortunately. That's a very unfortunate situation. So
I appreciate that so much. Personalized education, customer-centric design thinking, and based way of delivering education. I can already see the two of you working together and solving this problem for India. But more importantly, I think for everybody, just having the belief that Mr. Arun talked about as the core of how you build a business, emphasizing governments and making sure you build your network and relationship with the players, because you never know when an exit will happen. Mentally prepare yourself for when it does, is the keys to the success of a successful exit. Thank you, Mr. Arun. Thank you, Mr. Naga. I really enjoyed talking with you today and really learned a lot. Rashmi, back to you.
Thank you so much, Basil. On behalf of entire TGS team, would like to thank you, Arun and Naga Prasad, for sharing your entrepreneurial journey and phenomenal experience with the audience. Thank you, Basil, once again for creating such a wonderful panel. Thank you for your time and hope to connect with you all soon in future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. We enjoyed. Thank you, Basil,
Thank you.
for conducting this session and moderating this session. we'll get in touch.